Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We have plenty of questions for you today, so we're going to jump straight into them. First, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment using the word Kendo. YouTube ninjas, Kendo population, 625 trillion people starting Kendo in the next 45 seconds. Yeah, you know the score. Shop KendoStar. It's the best place to shop for Kendo equipment in the galaxy, universe, multiverse, history of the and future of the human race. You know it's true. All right, you're going to shop with us anyway. Shop at KendoStar.com. Don't buy twice, buy right first time round, and shop at KendoStar.com. Okay, let's get to the questions because we've got a lot, all right? So that's why we're hammering through right now, okay? Right. Just do those other two things. Hi there, Fish Sensei. I hope you're well. I've been quite interested in learning more about Hasso no kamae recently, and I thought I'd reach out for any insights you might have. Forgive my ignorance, but it feels like quite an awkward kamae. I find it easier to picture how waki no kamae. It's not waki no kamae. Welcome to Andy's Japanese lessons. Underqualified. It's called Wakigamae. Okay, Wakigamae, not waki no kamae. Okay, Wakigamae. Okay, the k sound in Japanese becomes a g sound when it joins to another word quite often. Okay, that's why we say jigeko, which is a type of keiko. You never just say geiko, all right? I know they do that in some countries, but it's not right, Japanese language-wise, okay? It's keiko, or jigeko, kakari-geiko, okay? Or debana kote is the kote, or sometimes just degote, or hikigote. These are things, all right? I think of some others off the top of my head. Anyway, very easy to picture how Wakigamae was useful, as it clearly both hides the blade and creates an opportunity to sweep the sword in many different directions on that side. In Hasso's case, though, I find it hard to picture a strike without transitioning into another kamae on the way as we do in kata number 4. I understand that it's included in the 4th kata, partially to acknowledge of how important it was in the past. As far as I've been able to gather, it was typically used by samurai in a confined space, or as a transition kamae when moving from one opponent to the next and needing to turn quickly. Can you tell me more about what this kamae was used for, and as you understand it, and whether you've seen any examples of it used effectively in Jigeko? Thank you very much. Okay. Hasso no kamae is the one from kata number 4, where you hold the sword like this. This isn't a bokuto, it's a Shinai, but you hold it basically like this, all right? Kendo is not Kenjutsu, all right? So how it relates to actual sword fighting is like of minimal relevance. It's not completely irrelevant, but it's kind of minimally relevant, all right? So, but here's my understanding, all right, of Hasso no kamae in terms of its relevance in the Kendo no kata. I think Hasso no kamae and Hidari Jodan are very kind of closely linked. They're kind of siblings in a way in terms of kamae. Okay, you've got Hidari Jodan. I don't have the space to do it properly, all right? It's not normally, my Jodan's not normally this rubbish, but all right, Hidari Jodan like this, and then your Hasso is like this. It's essentially the same idea, and it's what I understand is as you mentioned. It's often used, it would have often been used if you were in a sort of lower ceiling, confined space, or maybe if you had the helmet or something on top of your head, all right? I think as well, I think there are probably Kenjutsu moves where like they cut from here. I can imagine you cutting, you know, like a kind of cut like this from that position. But you do see in terms of relating it to Kendo, all right, is it used effectively in Jigeko? As a sort of standalone kamae, no, not really. Not really. It's kind of, you know, it's like a... It's kind of... I see Jordan players use it occasionally. They'll kind of drop to it this way. Kind of as a way to kind of get some kind of movement from their partner, and then they might make a strike from there. You could even do the kata de waza from there, of course, because essentially it is very similar to left Jordan, except you're not covering your men. So I think it's probably less effective as a standalone kamae. I think a lot of people who play Jordan or do Jordan wouldn't really consider themselves as adopting Hasso no kamae when they drop their hands like that, but I guess you could call it that. All right, but I don't think it's super effective. All right. Otherwise, you would see it more, wouldn't you, if it was? Sensei, I'm a 62-year-old Nidan. I try to enter at least 3 to 4 tournaments. I misread that. I thought you were going to say 34 tournaments. I was like, whoa, 3 to 4 tournaments a year. That's still amazing. When I became Yudansha, sorry, I was able to enter in the senior division. Last year, I entered both my rank division and the senior. The rank division is mostly populated by fast 20-somethings, and I lose a lot. In the senior division, I play Godans and Nanadans, and I lose, but I learn a lot. Okay. They do the kind of kendo I want to do. It's not hard. It's not hit and win. It's win and hit. My question is, do you see any value for me to continue to enter my rank division? My dojo is 90% 20-year-olds, and I play fast people all the time. Thank you. I wouldn't say there's no value to it, but I think it's up to you really. If you feel like you get more value from entering the senior division, then I don't think there's a problem with you just entering that. If you'd like to just do more matches, and I wouldn't say it's like no value, you know what I mean? But I do understand that, like, if you're sort of, you know, where you're at, and you go into, you know, all these kids that are, you know, they're at a physical advantage. If you don't find it sort of like discouraging or disheartening, then I don't see the problem. It sounds to me like you draw more value from the senior division, though. So if you it's your call, really. At the end of the day, it's not something I can answer for you. If you have fun, even if you lose in the other division, then sure, keep entering it. But if you're like, well, this is a bit rubbish, every time I join, I just lose straight away, it's not that fun, then don't bother, you know. Hi Andy, hope all is well. No question, just some gratitude and thanks for all the hard work you put into KendoStar and the Kendo Show. I love the Waza videos, especially love to Zero to Shodan series. Thank you very much, it's very nice of you. Got a new Waza video coming very, very soon. I already filmed it, everything. Hey Sensei, I hope all is well. Question about hand position. I have a Sensei who says that your top hand should be basically touching the tsuba, and another Sensei who says that his hand moved down a couple of inches. Left hand is at the bottom of the Shinai for both. I was wondering if one or more was correct, or if it's a case of preference. Thanks for all you do. Okay. Okay, so I think it's more of a preference rather than correct or incorrect. As a general rule, I like to try to hold the Shinai with my hand near the tsuba. All right. Now, when the Shinai doesn't have a tsuba on, then obviously there's a space. A couple of inches is probably a bit much, but then you've got to remember you've got the kote as well, right? So the kote have some padding, right? It's not an inch, but it's a bit, you know, maybe half an inch padding, and that's like a centimeter. So, you know, you can allow for that as well, for there to be a gap with the tsuba, like when you're doing suburi or something like that. But it's up to you. I think it's what's comfortable. I think if you hold it like this, it's not quite right, all right? It's not quite right. Now, I have seen players, I know of players who intentionally use a very long tsukagawa, and then their general kamae is like this, and then when they move to Tsubazeri, they'll use this so they can shorten the Shinai for when they want to do Kikiwaza. But that's more of I wouldn't do that unless you were somewhat advanced. But yeah, for sort of all intents and purposes, it's kind of I think it's a preference, but let's be honest, if you're like below 5th Dan, or sort of 5th Dan level, you're most likely going to get told, if you have like a big gap, you're most likely going to get told to move it. I think the thing to do is do what feels comfortable for you, and then if a sensei tells you to change it, then change it whilst the sensei is watching. And then, you know, just bank it, and then maybe you'll come back to it later. Next one. What do you recommend for practicing ashi sabaki, particularly to train and improve the ability to keep proper posture and ability to continue after initial strike. Study ashi practice. Study ashi practice. Try to make fast, small steps. Concentrate on your weight balance. Not leaning forward, not bobbing up and down, not doing this, yeah, but that way, all right? And that's that's the only thing you can do. And other than that, just keep practicing. Just keep on practicing. Ashi sabaki takes a long time to get right, okay? Next one, I'm obliged to give feedback to a low-grade Kenshi when in a dojo I visit weekly. Unfortunately, I'm having to say the same thing to one of them every week. Explain what that person needs to work on, but cannot see any changes in the following week. It isn't even that the person has tried something different. I don't believe the person has done any self-training between the sessions. To what extent would you help such a person? Ultimately, we're all responsible for our own kendo, aren't we? Yeah. So look, this is this is a fact of life when it comes to teaching kendo, all right? And for myself, and I think for a lot of kendo teachers, it can be difficult to accept that kendo isn't to everybody what it is to me. Okay, so for some people, and a sensei that I respect an awful lot, Mr. Jeff Salmon Sensei, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, was a very dear sensei to me. Said once, in my presence at least, and I believe he said it more than once, for lots of people, it's kendo on a Tuesday and dancing on a Wednesday. In other words, kendo isn't necessarily just, it was words to that effect anyway. If anyone was there when he said that and I got the quote wrong, it was words to that effect, right? Is that kendo isn't like the only thing they do, or it's not like it's just something they do on a like on a Wednesday night or whatever, to pass a couple of hours to entertain themselves. And a lot of people don't care so much about like really getting better. Of course they want to, but they don't want to. All right. So, and that's their choice. That's not wrong, or it's not, they're free to do that, right? So the fact is, I think there's an element of, we are responsible for our own kendo, and it's difficult because as a kendo teacher, you want your students to do very well, but at the same time, there's an element of leading the horse to water, and then it has to drink by itself, right? So when you're in the situation where you have the person coming to you for advice, and it's always the same thing every week, you got a couple of choices, and it's going to depend heavily on the relationship you have with that student. If it's not particularly close, then all you can say is like, oh yeah, we still need to work on that. Like I mentioned last week, still working on it. Still need to work on that. We're not quite there with it. Is all you can say. If you are a little bit closer to them, if you think they can take the sort of honest feedback, or you think that they are actually committed to improving and they're just not managing, then you could be a little bit more frank and say, look, I've sort of told you the same advice now several times, but we're not really going anywhere. So you need to change something here about how you're interpreting or applying this advice, right? Because it's not taking you in the direction that you want to go in. But I'll be honest with you, the people you can say that to are pretty rare. So I'd be careful going down that route. I think you're probably safer, especially you saying it's a dojo you visit weekly. I'd probably just stick to the let's keep on working on that left hand or that left foot or whatever. Because we're not quite there with it yet. So keep doing your best and just kind of encourage them in that way. I think that's the only thing you can do. But at the end of the day, especially like teaching kendo to adults, but it's not as specifically to that. The student is as responsible for their improvement as their teacher is. Now, if you have a student who's very keen and willing to improve, and you see this quite often, well, their teacher is not, you know, either not engaging or is simply not capable of giving the appropriate instruction, then you see these, you know, then that's on the teacher, right? That's on the teacher. And, you know, you see it from time to time where, you know, you often see these people who seem to have a lot of potential, but they seem to be sort of lost. They're keen, they're training a lot, but they're kind of floating in space. That's definitely something that I've sort of witnessed. So, but at the same time, when you've got, you could have the opposite, where you have a teacher that's very passionate, very detailed, very, you know, committed to teaching the students. If the student's not engaged, then they're not going to improve, right? So that's on the student, right? So it kind of takes two to tango in that regard, you know, like the really good players or students tend to have the good teacher and the good student, right? So yeah, there we go. I think it's shallow to just sometimes, you know, I think it's shallow to just blame the instructors if students are not progressing or showing the willingness to progress. You know, you've got to want it, right? Next, thanks for Kendo advice as always. I'm looking forward to the next round. I have a question about going to veterans tournaments. So again, sensei, when I'm only first dan, I want to go in with the right mindset. I think similar to the person that asked the other question about that, I think you just have to go in with a positive mindset, do your best, and see how it goes. And then regardless of the result, I think you'll benefit from it. Okay. You know, don't beat yourself up if you don't win, because, you know, you're going to be against people who've got a lot more experience than you are. Just do your best to take away from it as much as you possibly can and benefit from it in that way. Okay. Next one. Hello, Fish Sensei. Just curious about your thoughts. Do you consider yourself a Kenshi? I'm a Kendo practitioner and I do consider myself Kenshi, although I do not go around telling people about it or expecting to die by the sword. Okay, so I don't know why it's repeating those lines there. So let's look into that. Let's have a bit of fun with that. How can I get rid of that line? Oh, I'm not good with Word. Let's have a look. No, that's not the right button. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Right. Well, whatever. Let's write something. So there's a few words that describe Kendo people, right? What you're talking about is Kenshi, okay? Kenshi. Another is Kendoka, right? Kendoka, right? Are there others? Let's see what it says in the book. Is there anything in here that says that? I wonder. I bet. Let's have a look in the glossary 169. Let's have a look. See if that word is in here. It would be under K, wouldn't it? Kaishi waza, kaisu, kakari geiko, kakaru, kakegoe, kakugi, kamae, kamiza, kata geiko, katana, katsuninken, kawasu, keiko, ken, kendogi, kendogu, kendo yogu, kenjutsu, kensen, kentai ichi. Oh, no, that's interesting. You know, that's great because Kentai Ichi is in here, and we had a question about that a few weeks ago. I should have just looked in here and read this out. But anyway, okay, so neither Kenshi or Kendoka are in this book, all right? Now, I'm not going to try and read through this whole book to try and find which one is the appropriate word, but I think they're both appropriate for people who do Kendo, okay? The difference is this means swordsman, okay? And then this one means Kendo practitioner, all right? So this is obviously the most accurate for specifically someone that does Kendo. Someone who is a Kenshi could be any kind of, you know, swords person. And although I talk a lot on this channel about how Kendo is not necessarily a replication of sword fighting or sword fighting duels, you know, winning duels, or you know, an extension of Kenjutsu necessarily. It is in many ways, but in others it's not. It's still focused on the principles of the sword. It's still swordsmanship. It's still swordsmanship, even if that swordsmanship isn't necessarily entirely like about the technical or physical aspects of swordsmanship. I think it Kendo very much pertains to the ideals and the goals of what I would consider to be swordsmanship. So yes, I do consider myself Kenshi. Kenshi is often used as a word to describe Kendo practitioners in Japanese, probably more than Kendoka actually. So yes, I do. But that doesn't mean that I consider Kendo to be sword fighting, because I don't necessarily consider it to be sword fighting, but I do consider it to be swordsmanship, if that makes difference. Okay. Hello, Fish Sensei. Last week you mentioned some Kendoka who have competed across different generations. I'd love to hear more about how Kendo has evolved over the years. Could you share some insights on differences in styles, rules, strengths, weaknesses, etc. across different eras? Thank you in advance. This is kind of a difficult one. I'm not an expert on this, but let's see if we can have a look. Okay, so I found this video. This is a video of PL Gakuen versus Takachiho in the Gyokuryuki in 1987. Okay, on the left here we have Nabeyama Sensei, right, who's now the Hachidan Sensei, right, former, you know, he was a Hachidan champion, stuff like that. So you can see in my search bar here, I just searched Showa Koko Kendo, so like what the kind of Kendo they did in the Showa period, which was like the sort of like 70s and 80s and stuff. So let's have a look at the type of what the Kendo sort of looks like. All right. Now let me be very, very clear on this. All right. There's no criticism here or negative connotation to anything I'm about to say about any of this Kendo. I'm just, what we're looking at is how there's been any sort of difference or evolution between then and now. So obviously we've got a commentator. Right, let's have a look. A great men's strike. Okay, so it's still very explosive and dynamic, right? But obviously there's a lot of differences. I think the way in which like they swing the Shinai is different. I think they tend to use slightly bigger swings of the Shinai, for example. There's probably these like less focus on the kime or zanshin, or you could even argue that, and you could even instead call it the selling of points. It's a fantastic afterwards, wasn't it? Yeah. There's probably less focus on that sort of thing. Okay, this sort of what I think you would see less these days in the high school shiai. Where you have these sort of larger swings of the Shinai, the facing off, doing this sort of thing, you'll probably see a little bit less often. Should we see if we can find something to compare it with? Okay, so this is the first thing that came up when I just got rid of the word Showa and just searched Koko Kendo. This is a video from what is this from? The Kaiseki, which is a high school tournament that happened this year. It was a couple of weeks ago, this. All right, and this is two powerhouse schools, I think. This is Fukuoka Ohori high school, super famous, excellent school. I'm a bit biased because I trained there myself. But who were they against? Probably like Kyugaku or somewhere. Yeah, Kyushu Gaku into two megastar high schools here. Turn that down a little bit. So, right. So if what we're looking at here is looking to compare to what we just saw in terms of dynamicism. Is that a word? The Shinai salsa, the way they move the Shinai, stuff like that. See how it's very, very compact now, right? Very fast, very high speed. Whereas there's no, you see how little they swing the Shinai. It's somewhat more dynamic. I don't want to say one's better than the other, you know. These are obviously extremely high level athletes, all right, even at high school level. You know, they've got impeccably accurate footwork, sabaki. Yeah, you know, it just looks a little bit different, doesn't it? You know, the overall shape of it. So this is definitely something that's changed, right? It's definitely something that's changed. Now, why? I don't know. One thing I did mention last time though is obviously the I think the impact of Miyazaki Masahiro sensei. I've written his name wrong there. Actually, that's not the right kanji for it as well. It's this one. This is the correct kanji. I wrote the wrong one, but it doesn't matter. There we go. That's corrected. And I think Miyazaki Masahiro sensei did change the face of Kendo a little bit. I think he sort of cracked the code a little bit. Because his Kendo sort of changed, I think moved Kendo more in that direction of more compact waza, like this, yeah, which was a little bit different. It was a little bit different to what everyone was doing at the time, probably, which is one of the reasons I expect he was very successful, and I think it changed the face of how Kendo was you know, practiced and especially competitively. Let's have one look. You know, it's kind of a little bit more compact, a little bit more precise than what I've been going before. So you see how, you know, now this is the All Japan Championships. Everyone here is an absolute god. You know what I mean? They're absolutely brilliant. But you can see how from here his style was somewhat different. Whereas lots of people at this point were still, I think, making somewhat larger swings of the Shinai. He was going straight from point A to point B, and he'd figured out a way to still deliver strikes like that powerfully, which is how we've, you know, got to where we're at. So yeah, it's super cool, super interesting, and I think that definitely is something that changed the direction of where Kendo went in that regard. So yeah. I think does that answer the question? I don't think it's a case of differences in strengths and weaknesses, but I definitely think that Kendo has probably got more sharp. It's got more precise, not in terms of not just striking, but in sabaki and stuff like that as well. I think it's undoubtable to say that it hasn't become more sportified. I think it has. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't really know. But I don't think it's excessive to the point where it's like spoiled Kendo or something like that. I like where Kendo is right now. I don't dislike it. I do. There are things about modern Kendo that I prefer. You know, I'm not a massive fan of, and would prefer it to be more like it was 15 years ago, but that's part of getting old, isn't it? Is like a kind of, you know, nostalgia for the past. So yeah, obviously rules have changed over the decades as well. We've had recent changes to Super Zeri, of course, changes in the past regarding things like target areas, munetsuki and stuff being valid and not valid, stuff like that. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's an interesting thing, and I think that what I do enjoy is I do still find a lot of value in watching and learning about Kendo from different time periods. And I think it's a really interesting thing. So yeah, there we go. I think this is similar. So it says here, hello, Sensei, have there been any changes in Kendo over the years that you haven't been particularly in favour of? For example, in judo, the IJF removed leg grabs from competition, which has been highly controversial topic. topic. Many practitioners feel that this change has taken away from the important part of judo, both from the martial perspective and in terms of preserving its original and true form. Though there is some good news, Kodokan in Japan has reintroduced certain leg grappling techniques as of this April. Has anything similar happened in Kendo that you feel strongly about? Thank you very much. No, I don't think so. I was skeptical with the recent changes to the Tsubazeri rules when they were first introduced. I thought they were a little bit aggressive and they were over the top in terms of discouraging the application of hikiwaza, which I believe is an important element of Kendo. Much like your leg grabs in judo, I think it is an important aspect of preserving Kendo. However, they were quite quick to modify them slightly and to communicate the interpretation of them better, so that now I think they're in a pretty good place. Hikiwaza is still very viable. It's much harder to waste time in the Shiai by spending it in Tsubazeri. So you know, in the end, I was quite happy with how it turned out. Otherwise, no, I can't think of anything that I think, oh, you know, I wish they kept that in or whatever. I don't think it was a mistake to remove Munetsuki. I think not having Munetsuki is fine. I don't think it was necessary to retain things like ashibarai, you know, kicking the legs out, and that sort of thing, or like the old stuff of like removing the men to win and stuff like that. I don't like any of that stuff. So no, I'm pretty happy with where we're at right now with Kendo, actually, and I think it's moving in a pretty nice direction. I would like to see, and I think it wouldn't. I'd like to think we will probably see some slightly more stricter applications of torikeshi, removing points for over celebration. I think there's a pattern recently of over celebration after striking, not necessarily like this, but the idea of kind of hitting and kind of. I particularly don't like it when. And it's a personal gripe, I expect, but I don't think I'm alone in thinking it. But let's say there's a debana man this way, and instead of after striking returning to kamae versus your opponent, they can turn away and yeah, that was my man sort of thing. It's kind of it's a celebration rather than an actual zanshin. But it's a bit mean to kind of whip out torikeshi on that as well. So I don't know. Anyway, next, Andy, does KendoStar deal in Jobo Shurishi and or Kyoto Shoryu? It's Shoryu-do, actually, not Shoryu-to. It's I don't know what Shoryu. I don't know why we've got Japanese on here, but it's Shoryu-do. If you do and have some in stock, can you please show them or talk about what they're like? Okay, so yes, I talked about Joboshi, Urishi, or Johoji. Joboji or Johoji, it depends on the area and how that's read. It's one of those where the h sound becomes a b sound when it's connected to something else. I have a let's call it a Joboshi Urishi for the sake of this. That's what you've used. I have a Joboshi Urishi door, and I used it in my recent Dan exam. It was commented about. Let me see if I can find a picture of it so that I can bring it up on the screen for you, so we can talk about it a little bit. It's a beautiful door. It's on a different sort of level to other black doors. So what Joboshi is a type of black urishi. There's extremely high quality and extremely high gloss, and it's really, really nice. I'm just trying to find right now, see if I can find a picture. If I can't, then we're gonna have to move on without it. But we do there it is. Right, okay, so let me just grab this picture for you guys. We can get it. We do have it. Well, we don't have it. We don't have it in stock. They're made to order, and they're hard to get. and they're super expensive. All right, so I don't have it here with me. It's at the KendoStar office. Let's see if I can bring these pictures in. It's at the KendoStar office right now. Did it come up? It's coming up. There we go. Okay. So this is my Jobo Shurishi bamboo doll. Absolutely really beautiful. I know it's a little bit dark, but it's super shiny. It's just really hard wearing as well. It's been hit quite a lot. It doesn't have any scratching on it. They're very expensive. We'd have to quote you on it if you wanted one, and you're looking at a long time in terms of production. All right, a long time. Like, expect to wait a year. All right, it took me a year to get this one. All right, so don't expect it to come quickly. That's a picture from my Instagram of me wearing it. You can sort of see instantly how kind of mirror shiny it is. All right, you can sort of see there how mirror shiny it is. That was me at the Shinsa. So it's absolutely beautiful. In terms of Kyoto Shoryudo, Kyoto Shoryudo is a manufacturer of bamboo do. They're not our standard go-to manufacturer of bamboo do, but we do have access to them if you wanted them. Again, I don't have them in stock. We don't have any bamboo do in stock. They're made to order. But if you wanted one, then we could definitely arrange it. So yeah, that's definitely something we could do. I'll be honest with you, the Shoryudo are very nice as well. They're very nice quality dodai, actually. Very well established, well known manufacturer of bamboo do. So yeah, they're very nice too. So if you're into bamboo do, you want something special, then yeah, you'd have to hit us up. We'd have to talk about what it is you want. We'll see if we can grab some pictures for you and send them on. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my Jobo do here to show you just these pictures. But I wanted it because I had this do made for my 7th Dan exam. 7th Dan was the first exam I ever attempted wearing a black do. Okay, so anyone that tells you have to wear a black do for Shinsa, I never wore a black do until I took the 7th Dan exam. And even when I did, I made sure it was the shiniest black do in the room, and it was. Thanks to this Jobo Shurishi. So it's not just any black do, and the pictures really don't do it justice. It's like a mirror. It's really like a mirror polished black do. It's really beautiful. So yeah, there we go. Last one, Hello Fish Sensei. I've heard a few slightly varied ways to spread your weight across the left and right legs when in kamae. I want to ask you, what percentage do you spread your weight on the left and right legs? It's roughly 50-50, but if I was going to be really sort of precise, it's probably more 55-45, with 55 on the right leg, on the left leg, the back leg, and it might even be 60-40. It might even be 60-40, but it depends on what's comfortable for you. All right, so I think this is going to be one of those that's different for everybody. What's important is that you don't overbend your knees. All right, but you have your weight distributed nice and comfortably so that you can push your body weight forward when you strike. All right, you're gonna have to figure it out through your own practice. All right, there's no like, oh, it should be this for definite. Okay, I think starting roughly even is a good starting point. Okay, and there we go. We're at the end of the show. Thank you very much for joining me today. All right, I know we went a bit sort of all over the place. We've had pictures, we've had videos, but it's been a fun show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, shop at KendoStar, leave a comment using the word Kendo, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.